1982, Washington, D.C.'s airport, Air Florida Flight 90 takes off. There's ice on its wings. It crashes, and I think maybe 78 people perish. And they're trying to figure out, of course, what caused this to happen. Plane crashes are a big deal. You'd be interested to know that no less than Huey P. Newton made an interesting contribution to the analysis of that. Now, how did this happen? So this is a little interesting corner of history about a very interesting guy, of which there's a lot of stories and a lot to know. Huey P. Newton. There's a show on Netflix right now, The Big Cigar, based on his temporary escape to Cuba. Little background on Huey Newton. He and Bobby Seale started the Black Panthers in 1966. Newton immediately, I think it's 67 or 8, he gets convicted of shooting an Oakland cop, killing him, but he only got like a 2 to 15. Then that gets overturned. Huey Newton becomes this huge celebrity. The Black Panthers are a big deal all across the United States and globally. They're very famous and very active. It's estimated that 28 Black Panthers were killed in various shootouts, mostly involving the police, but some in shootouts involving each other, and they killed maybe 9 or more law enforcement and shot 50 or something like that. So the Black Panthers were serious business. Huey Newton himself was, but also a very intelligent guy, obviously very charismatic, in addition to being very intelligent. So in 1974, so this ties into the Big Cigar, we're going to get back to our plane crash. In 74, a prostitute is shot in the head on a street corner in Oakland. Huey Newton, there's a witness, a guy that was out on the corner supposedly selling sticks of gangster, aka marijuana reefer cigarettes, to the young ladies. He claims that Huey Newton and his bodyguard pulled up in a big black car, summoned one of the girls over, popped her in the head. Newton goes on the run. This is the story of the Big Cigar. He flees the United States. He's gone from 74 to 77. He's in Cuba. He ends up coming back in 77. He has to sit in the county jail for a while. They got him in the hole. Remember, he's been a fugitive in a communist country at the peak of the Cold War. There ends up being a trial, of course. Now, by this time, Huey has found some witnesses. So there's the guy that was selling weed claims he saw Huey Newton shoot the girl that the prostitutes. Basically, they were out trying to string down tricks, and it irritated Huey Newton, so he shot her. He didn't like prostitutes. She was 17. But then Huey Newton's bodyguard and some other people testified that the guy that claims he saw Huey Newton shoot the girl, that he himself is the one who shot her. He gets found not guilty, but not after sitting in jail for a while. Fix my collar here. Oh, no wonder. It's misbuttoned. I'll just leave it like that. Okay, so he beats the case, but he's been sitting in jail and he's been working on college credits. So he gets out and he's in a program at the University of Santa Cruz called the History of Consciousness. And that's being run by a guy named Robert Trivers. Robert Trivers is they just released a documentary on him. He was extremely important. Well, he's still alive. He's like 82. Evolutionary, sociobiology is his field, and it's the study of the idea that, okay, so we know about evolution, that humans' behavior, so evolution also affects our, not just our bodies, but our behaviors. So ranging from things like grape must have some evolutionary benefit at times, or else we wouldn't do it. Anything we might do, lying. He developed something called the altruistic. Basically, why do humans? Why would I ever be nice to you if I'm not getting something out of it now? And then he used game theory to explain that, well, if we didn't evolve to have the ability to foresee that, okay, I'm engaged, I'm around you all the time, so if I do nice things for you sometimes, then you'll owe me, and later on you'll do something nice for me. So anyways, Travers is an important person in studying human behavior and decision making. Huey Newton enters his History of Consciousness program to get his PhD. Newton's PhD ends up being about the repression by the government of the Black Panther movement, of course, because he was founder of the Black Panthers. And he did get his PhD, so Huey Newton was actually Dr. Huey P. Newton. And for those who don't know how Huey Newton ended, he ended in 1989 at a Oakland crack house. The official tale is he had a long-standing bad cocaine problem. He was going around West Oakland using the Black Panther name to press people for free crack. This guy, Tyrone Robinson, who's still in prison for killing him. Legend goes the BGF ordered him to kill Huey Newton, or maybe he was just sick of Huey Newton pressing him. But whatever happened at the end of his life, he was Dr. Huey P. Newton, very intelligent. Type in Huey Newton interview on YouTube. There's lots of, ranging from him being on the Phil Donahue show to the uncut interview with him of maybe from Eyes on the Prize to various Black Panther documentaries. Very smart, interesting guy. You can kind of tell he's aggressive, and he's kind of at the, you could see him like, oh, I could see him going crazy or doing something violent. But to accomplish things, you got to have that type of personality. So, anyways, he's in this History of Consciousness program getting his PhD with Travers. Travers is a big deal at this point. Travers has been, in his late 20s, he's come up with some theories that are very important and are still used to this day, altruistic cooperation. And him and Newton become friends to some degree, and they start working. So Huey Newton, obviously somebody that had created a grassroots organization from inner city Oakland, crime filled. So dealing with the things that go on in the street, con games, lying, deceitfulness. So Travers wanted to study the evolution of humans' ability to deceive others and to self-deceit as an evolutionary tool. What's self-deceit? Like, so maybe believing in, say you're faced with some people are an animal or some people are going to attack you, and it is very unlikely that you could survive. But no matter how unlikely it is, if you can't run away, then it would be evolutionarily beneficial to have evolved that even in the face of overwhelming odds, to deceive yourself that you have a chance of victory or escape, because, lightning does strike. I mean, maybe 3 rough guys attack me and somehow, one of them slips on a stone and I'm able to stop his head, and then the other guy has a knife and lunges at me and misses and stabs the other guy and runs off. I mean, there is some chance that could happen. It might be close to zero, but I might as well have the belief that I could survive so that I at least try. So they start studying that, and Triver's friend, another scientist, social scientist, was on the Air Florida Flight 90 that crashed in Washington, D.C. So he was interested in it, and I guess they figure out, the National Transportation Safety Board figures out that the plane had too much ice on the wings and it should have never really taken off, and it's kind of mysterious. Like, why would these two experienced pilots have violated kind of the basic training and taken off? So maybe on the news, the national news, because remember, these plane crashes are a big deal, at least even now, when a plane crash and a bunch of people dies, for a day or two it's on the news. He hears some audio, like just 10 seconds of audio of the pilot and the co-pilot talking to each other, and their voices sound weird to him. So at this point he's working with Huey Newton's his student, in the general sense. He's in his program. I don't know if he was in any of his classes, but so him and Newton decide to work on a paper together, tentatively called Con Games. Oh, they had started working on a paper about self-deceit back in 79. So when this crash happened in 82, and there was some public attention, they said, oh, we should finish this up. And then Huey Newton's famous, of course, and Triver's had excellent academic bona fides. He's famous in academia. Them coming together, they get a book deal. And so Huey Newton's contribution, which Travers describes Huey Newton as one of the smartest, very intelligent person, and this is someone who went to Harvard and has a PhD and etc. So they get the transcript, or they get all of the recordings and all of the transcripts from the black box of what the pilot and the co-pilot were saying to each other. And it's a study in self-deceit and the danger of human decision-making. So the co-pilot, who's less experienced, who's a licensed pilot, but he's younger, he's newer, he's the co-pilot, he's a stickler for the rules. He's saying, hey, we haven't given enough time for the wings to de-ice, there's slightly too much of whatever CO, all the various, all the things that you have to check before you take off. There's a few problems based around basically ice on the wings. But the pilot, who is someone who's obviously, he's never crashed because he's alive, he's probably flown before. We all know that rules usually have a little bit of a, if they tell you don't do something past the number 9, they probably built in a little cushion, really. If it's 10.5, you can do it and nothing can happen. So the icing is just a little beyond what it's supposed to be. And he's like, well, if we don't take off, then we're going to lose our place in the line. And I don't know, the D.C. airport, probably at that time, 78. There was a new wave of airports built in the 80s that hadn't happened. And maybe there was, if you got out of line, you're going to have to wait 40 minutes for another slot to take off. And he didn't feel like it. And he's deceiving himself into thinking it's safe, and the co-pilot does not have the psychological wherewithal because he's a subordinate, even though he really could put his foot down because they're really supposed to follow the rules, and they end up taking off with a little too much ice, and the plane crashes and everybody dies. So this is a quite important field of study. We all engage in self-deceit and in deceit. So we know we lie to each other, but lying to yourself is something we don't think about much. But, how do we all wake up every day and do things that aren't good for us, or we're in situations that don't make us happy, or, how is it that you're 30 and you don't have a car and a job, but somehow, let the first thing I do when I get up, let me go run and get a blunt wrap, finish off this 3-5, and then I can think straight. Well, you're deceiving yourself. You know that this is not appropriate. There's all sorts of self-deceit. Donald Trump perhaps is engaging in massive self-deceit in public. People the guy that shot Charlie Kirk, what is his self-deceit? That he's gonna be do something that positively impacts society? Does he think he's gonna get away with it? Does he think he's a hero? There's all sorts of self-deceit. And when you move this into fields where human decision making is in public policy, politics, or in the case of the airplane, where human lives are at stake running machinery and different large operations, we need to be studying self-deceit. So they published their paper. It's not a big hit, so to speak, on the academic circuit. It's not a dud. It's just that Trivers has been publishing things that have been very, very well received. Him and Newton's paper is published in journals. It's a real paper. Newton has his name on it, so Huey Newton published in a serious academic paper with a very important guy from the social sciences, Trivers. Now, Trivers actually joins the Black Panther Party at this time. Well, he had already done it in like 79. That's how him and Newton were cool in 82. He had already joined. Now, Newton, at this point, right after this 82 paper, his life really starts to unravel. He gets charged with some, and Black Panthers at this time are still getting, or the remnants of the Black Panthers are still getting some government funding for school lunch and some different things. Newton personally is hit with some embezzlement of funds, maybe $600,000. There's a dark incident where a white woman who was working as a bookkeeper in maybe 79 or 8. Well, this would have been before Newton did his work with Trivers. Because remember, he beat the case when he came back from Cuba. He beat the case of killing a prostitute. This white woman was working as a bookkeeper and uncovered some irregularities in a bar the Black Panthers owned, the Lamppost maybe. She's found floating in the San Francisco Bay. At this time, Kathleen Cleaver, I don't know if she's still going by Cleaver at that time. Kathleen Turner? Kathleen Cleaver. Well, she was one of the prominent female Black Panthers. She was running for Oakland City Council. People feel like they killed Van Patten to cover that up, but no one's ever been charged with killing Van Patten, so I'm not saying the Black Panthers killed her, but that's a lot of people think that, and there's been books written about that, and that Huey Newton ordered it. Another crazy thing that went on, so in that trial where he beat the case, there was the guy selling weed that said he saw Newton, but then someone else said no, it was him that actually did the shooting. There was a woman, maybe, I'm not sure if she was a prostitute, or she probably was if she was on that street corner, that was going to be a witness against Newton. And in Richmond, which is a rough city there by Oakland, one night when the trial was going on, 3 men dressed in dark clothes and ski masks hop out with machine guns and shoot this house up. Who the homeowner comes out and shoots back. and it causes the three shooters to, they're getting shot at unexpectedly, and one of the shooters shoots one of the other shooters in the back and kills him, and they leave the body, and he was a Black Panther. And the girl who was going to be the witness that said she saw Huey Newton kill the prostitute, she says, "Oh, I'm like the house that they were shooting up, I'm the next door neighbor. They must have been trying to get me, and they just had the wrong address." So the Black Panthers did try to assassinate this woman who was going to testify against Huey Newton. Again, they couldn't link it to Newton. Not long after that, yet another Black Panther, a guy, was found barely alive under a pile of rocks in the desert outside of LA, I guess, somewhere in California. He said he was in charge of helping the two Black Panthers, the two shooters. Remember, there were three shooters at that house. The two shooters accidentally killed the one. Well, this Black Panther they found almost dead under the pile of rocks, he said he had been assigned by the Black Panthers to help those two guys escape, and then they wanted to get rid of him, so they beat him to death and stuffed him out in the desert, but he lived. He was paralyzed for the rest of his life. Again, no one could say that it was Newton that personally ordered it. I'm not saying he did, but so a lot of violence there at the end with the Panthers. So this was the unraveling of the Black Panthers, but and then so the field of study, con games, and self-deceit. So they were calling the conversation between the pilot and the co-pilot a con game of sorts, where the pilot was conning the co-pilot into breaking protocol, and he was also engaged in self-deceit, and it led to the death of the 78 people, which is actually an interesting field of study and important. Academia never really wanted to pick too much up on that. They've kept the study of behavioral evolution to animals, and they don't like applying it to humans. Obviously, this studying humans and making value judgments on human behavior is very tied in with movements of the past that have a bad, not just Nazism, hardcore Soviet communist stuff, where people's behavior was being controlled. So, due probably to political, you could call it political correctness or something, not a lot of further exploration into that field that Trivers and Newton opened up. But it was very interesting to me, so I thought you might find that all interesting. Of course, Newton only lived another 7 years after that paper was published. Him and Trivers, something went on between them. Newton was getting pretty out of control. Trivers doesn't talk about it. In his biography, he doesn't even mention this whole... I didn't read the biography, I read a review of it. It said he doesn't really mention the episode with Newton much, which is odd, because Newton was so famous, why wouldn't he mention it? But he may have been frightened or something, I don't know. But Huey Newton, Dr. Huey Newton, published an interesting to me, important and somewhat important hardcore academic paper not long before his death. So there's a lot to talk about the Black Panthers and Huey Newton, but I bet you that little story is one you never heard. Out profit American dope.